Hello, welcome to PODnas. This is a sports show with a Southern and Cajun flair. I'm Daniel Hawks. That's Jared Roser. Today, we are going to talk about the way too early NFL 2026 mock drafts. Garrett Nussmeier is in the top 1, top 5, top 10, and almost all of them. So we're going to go over that. What does that mean for him? What does that mean for LSU in this upcoming season? Also, NBA playoff second round has begun. We'll go into a little bit of that. Jared, how you doing today?
Good, man. If folks could only see behind the scenes the technology issues
Could
we've been
only
we've
see
been
the
working
way
through,
she
and now
loves me.
the absolutely ratchet setup that I currently have with a podcast, um, 3 feet
Baby, you could
in
understand.
front of my computer with a cell phone, a mic plugged in through there, like a little clip light, like hanging barely off the corner of the phone. There's a lot going on this side of this thing, and so the fact that we're actually this deep into this is just exciting in and of itself in a way that folks will not understand.
I want to let you know in my head, I was still singing Tonic, if you could see the way at various points while you would.
Yeah, well, I was having trouble finishing my sentence because I was starting to sing
Uh,
tonic in my head instead of formulate what I was about to say.
Why I feel this way about her little Madeira.
This is the Pearl Jam cover of the song at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, I think that's enough getting off track for one episode. Jared, we've had some technical difficulty set up, but we've moved through them. We passed through them um, just a little bit. So I want to talk about what's really on the hearts and minds of everyone today. The NFL 2026 draft. Duh. uh, this past week, um, uh, after the draft ends, they're just all over the place, and it is one of the biggest click bait and successful clickbait things in the sports world is way too early mock drafts. People want to see who's going to go number one next year. What does the draft class look like next year, right after all this happens? Um, so that came out, and Jarrett wrote an article for On3 this past Monday. I'll let you go into where people can find that in a little bit. But Garrett Nussmeier is all over the top 10 and the first, in at least in the first round, mostly in the top 10. Couple people have him as number one. Jared, where can people find this article? One, and then what does this kind of mean? How's the vibe in LSU and Baton Rouge with this news coming out? Does it affect the LSU team or Garrett Nussmeier at all?
So folks can find the article on 3's LSU site, the Bengal Tiger, and it posted Monday morning and looked at 16 mock drafts that I pulled and where Garrett slotted among the overall first round as well as which quarterback he was. And as you mentioned, that ranged from I had four that listed him as the number one overall pick, and everyone having him in the first round, mostly top 10. But as far as what it means in Baton Rouge and the mood here, not a whole hell of a lot because it's May of 2025 at the moment.
What are you
I think
talking about?
I think it's an interesting kind of signal to, okay, we're turning the page to the early conversation for 2026, and just from a talking point standpoint, it's an opportunity for analysts to kind of set the early stage of here are a few people to know and watch and kind of keep tabs on heading into the season, and for fans to get a better sense of, okay, shoot, here's 32 guys that have a chance at least. But so much is going to happen between now and then. Some of the guys may or may not even end up in the draft class. How will seasons go in terms of on-field performance? What injuries will impact some things, all before we even get to the whole Senior Bowl, Combine, Pro Day process, and really picking everything apart. And so it's a nice conversation piece. I don't think it should mean much to the prospects themselves if it's something that the guys are paying close. If the guys are paying close attention to, then they should really take a step back and not don't start judging anything based off of a mock draft almost a full calendar year before your actual draft comes into play. And fortunately for Garrett in particular, he's wired in such a way that I think if you ask him, he would very much downplay it, and if he had seen it at all, would say it mattered not at all to him. And I think he would be honest in that statement as well.
Okay. Because I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I don't think prospects should look at this a full year ahead and say, "Oh, I'm going to base my decisions for this season on this." But people are human, and it I think is a thing. I think whether consciously or not, a kid sees that possible first round pick, maybe make some business decisions a little bit earlier in the season on the field, instead of going out and getting there. I'm not saying I don't even think that's a majority of of uh of players right now, but I would think I would be remiss to say if I don't think that that doesn't happen. I think that very much the ego probably gets involved a little bit with it would definitely be with me. Maybe I'm just projecting. That's what I'm doing. I'm just projecting that if I was playing football and someone said that about me, I would have a terrible season because in my head, it's like when in Arrested Development when the Lindsay Bluth gets the commercial job and then spends the rest of the day drinking and then misses the commercial job because she was hungover from drinking with her mom celebrating. That's what would happen to me in the NFL sphere. So, or the football
And
sphere and all. So,
bringing that metaphor back around, I I am confident in saying that in that scenario, Garrett is showing up to that commercial and is fully ready to knock it out of the park and is not going to be sidetracked by those things. And I think honestly, the guys that for the most part NFL teams are looking for are the people who not only have the physical traits that set them apart, but have been able to reach their potential by being really talented at framing things mentally and to quote Coach O down here, block out the noise and all of those things. And I think in the Garrett situation in particular, as much as there may be some guys that do pay a little bit too much attention to some of the media aspect and maybe it kind of seeps in a little bit, I genuinely trust his mentality and compartmentalization ability. And I don't know how much of that is. I mean, he grew up in a football household where his dad was an NFL player and a coach. I'm sure that helps certainly some just natural wiring and whatnot, and some of his own experience. But Garrett, I think one of the things that appeals NFL teams and certainly LSU's coaches and fans and whatnot is the way that he handles his business and is able to kind of block things out and move forward. And so that's encouraging for a guy that I do think has a chance to have a great fall and then cash that in the spring.
now, one thing that did happen last year, and I kind of wanted to bring this up, um, after the Texas A&M game, LSU in general just fell apart. Um, do you know from talking to any of the players, any of the coaches, any of the staff, going through all this spring practice, everything that's been happening? Um, is that a point of emphasis of like finishing strong or not letting even, not letting one step back turn to 5, 10, 15 steps back, which kind of felt like last year? Um, and wasn't all Garrett's fault, wasn't all at anyone's one person's fault. I think the team collectively like took a giant step back. I don't know what really happened. But it was very evident that they were not the same team as they were even like after the USC loss. They came back and I thought started to play really, really well outside of that USC game, which they won still, but definitely should not have won. Outside of the South Carolina game after the USC game. Uh, is there any like sense of that could happen again, or what are things that they're doing to maybe get in front of that?
I mean, I think it's a new year and a very new team, and that a lot of the maturation process of the guys that are back, including a guy like Garrett, who will be now a second year starter and have the opportunity to grow from some of those experience with College Station being a huge one in his kind of storyline to this point. I think there's a lot of confidence in just the strides you'll see from those guys, as well as an awful lot of experienced veteran guys through the transfer portal to fill holes all over that roster and be able to compete at a high level immediately. And so it's a different looking team, a team where guys that were a member of last year, I think there's an expectation of just that next step, and obviously some of the new faces that weren't a part of that team and its ups and downs anyway. It Under Brian Kelly, it's been a program that has started off in the loss column each year. I mean, going back even to the back half of O's tenure, and has had to find a way to fight through that and stay mentally strong and kind of peak more as the season has gone on. And so you've seen that more often than not, but still some missteps that I think you also have to factor in. They played some tough teams, tough matchups for them, and the way that they were constituted as a roster in particular, and tough games on the road. Um,
Yeah.
and so I don't think there's a lot of, I think they'll certainly want to finish the season more strongly, but I don't necessarily think it's something they're harping on per se.
Okay. Who? What are the skill position upgrades? So, because obviously, with the loss of Kyron Lacey, and the loss of Kyron Lacey in general, but LSU just uh, lost a lot of their playmakers, and also the run game was not up to snuff last year. But what are the upgrades that like Garrett Nussmeier has to throw to this year? Looking forward a little bit, then we can move on to NBA. Just wanted to hit that a little bit because I do think that's a big thing going into this. Maybe a concern of maybe not as plugged in LSU fans, a concern of someone that's just looking from the outside in a different city, different state. Of LSU has this long line of great pass catchers, and Mason Taylor leaves, Kyron Lacey leaves, all of these things. Um, who is going to step up now in those roles, in those pass catching skill roles?
Yeah, I think from the pass catcher standpoint, they're going to be really well situated. They have this next set of guys, including at that wide receiver spot, a lot of guys who could hear their names called in that 2026 draft. And so they'll be fine there. I mean, some names that folks will remember, certainly Aaron Anderson, who had a breakout season this past fall. And actually, when Kyron sat out the bowl game, Aaron, because of a big bowl performance, ends up being the leading receiver for the 2024 season for
Yep.
LSU. And so he's
Great
back.
game.
A guy, Chris Hilton, who we saw come back in the last few games and kind of finally hit his stride in the end of SEC play and in the bowl game. He's someone that we've seen those flashes of his ability to be as good as any wide receiver that's come through in recent years, honestly. Someone that was right in the thick of those prospect rankings coming out of high school with Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. and company. He's just been banged up the last couple of years. And so if he's healthy, he has all of the traits to be a fantastic pass catcher there. And then you bring in transfers in Nick Anderson from Oklahoma, Barian Brown from Kentucky, both of whom are guys that have been talked about as NFL potential guys. Trey'Dez Green, who was active as a kind of hybrid tight end wide receiver as a freshman, now with a year under his belt in SEC play and in an SEC strength and conditioning program, will be back, and it'll be interesting to see how they utilize him this year. And you bring in also Bauer Sharp, a more physical, traditional, but still very athletic and capable pass catcher of a tight end from Oklahoma as well. And so there's a wealth of weapons there. Caden Durham now as a sophomore, healthy coming into his sophomore year in the backfield. Caleb Jackson trimmed down, hoping that he can get back to some of those flashes we saw from him as a freshman at running back. You bring in a couple of great running backs in Harlem Berry and JT Lindsay from the recruiting ranks. And so the weapons are in great shape. You have to replace that offensive line.
Former PODnas player of the week, or play of the week, JT Lindsay.
JT Lindsay for sure. Yeah, he and Harlem Berry both were involved. I know JT won 1 week. Harlem was a candidate at least 1 or 2 weeks. But the big question for LSU this year on offense is you have to replace Will Campbell, Emory Jones, Miles Frazier, and Garrett Dellinger, 4 guys that had started together for 3 years now. And so that was a group that had its own ups and downs, some injuries along the way, didn't help set the table in the run game as well as they maybe would have liked in 2024. And so watching how the offensive line comes together, both protecting Garrett as well as setting the table for a better running game to support Garrett in that way. If you want to talk about kind of takeaways from the way last season ended, being able to establish a better running game in 2025 is absolutely a focal point for this team this offseason.
Hey, love to hear that, and we will keep you updated. on all things LSU, obviously, as we get closer to the season. I know it was way too early, but whenever I start looking at these mock drafts, and every single one has Garrett Nussmeier on there. Like you said, you thought that I literally I had read your column, which I'm going to read. I'm going to,
It,
but
I mean, you don't have to. The people should. I'm not saying don't read things. I
yeah.
enjoy
No, no,
what
no,
I
no.
do and take pride in it, but
But
I don't feel
I
bad if you
sent
don't.
I sent this message over that we should talk about, Garrett being thrown in all these first rounders, and your first thought was that, oh, he must have read my article. So I mean, we're partners. On the same wavelength. That was a multi-layered joke with that was the Kendrick Lamar of puns in a partners podcast wavelength joke. It was a nacho of a joke. Layers. All right.
You you went out for a second for me, and then you were just still in the same sentence, and it was shocking to me that we were still doing it.
Oh, all right. Now, just to top off the episode, we're going into NBA playoffs. Round two started. Two amazing upsets yesterday. New York beats Boston in overtime, and then the Nuggets take it to OKC after a long, trudging comeback that they finally cap in the last seconds with Aaron Gordon hitting a corner three to win the game. So both lower seeds win the first round games yesterday, and then also the day before. Who played the day before? It's been
The
so long.
Pacers went to Cleveland and got a
Pacers
win.
went to Cleveland. So all of the underdogs have won game one. Which one of these underdogs do you think has the best chance of winning? And take out that Golden State still hasn't played Timberwolves. I think the Timberwolves are going to absolutely take it to Golden State tonight. Just Golden State's way too old and they're on way too little rest. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look for that Golden State Minnesota game just briefly. When Golden State failed in game five, I felt like it was a good chance they were going to regret letting the series linger. And then it got pushed to seven. And now on 2 days rest, they have to go play a big physical athletic Minnesota team that's been waiting and prepping for them and was going to be a problem with its size and athleticism anyway. And so I very quickly put in the same game parlay of Minnesota minus 5.5, Ant hitting his rebounds, Julius Randle hitting his rebounds, Nas hitting 10 points because I think he'll come off the bench and play well, and kind of exploit some of that mismatch as well. But the first three games for the lower seeds to all go win, impressive performances all around, and particularly the games Monday night, the kind of perseverance, stick to itiveness late in those games when they were behind to kind of keep fighting and overtake things late. All impressive across the board. I think the team that I look at of the three that is most likely to win its series, I might say the Pacers, particularly if they continue in Cleveland to have issues with Darius Garland from a health standpoint, and he might be out another week plus. I think that series is poised to be really tight for the long haul of it, and that the Pacers have been kind of overlooked as a legitimate contender in the East, and now having stolen home court advantage and Tyrese Halliburton and company playing the way they're playing, that they are poised to have as good of a chance as any of the lower seeds to pull it off.
Yeah, they look tough. I I think that's the right choice. I would love to say New York. I just cannot trust Tom Thibodeau's coaching this postseason. In critical moments has been for someone who is widely regarded as such a good coach. um, his decision making this postseason has been incorrigible. Let's just say that. um, just the awareness of like not getting his two guys in there for a full 2 minutes cost him a game versus Detroit. Um, I don't know. It's just there's a bunch of weird stuff. The way that cat gets used a bunch is just strange to me, and I don't know if that's maybe just a cat thing because also on Minnesota last year, it just kind of seemed like in the bigger games he just kind of disappeared, which happened a lot in the at the end of the New York Boston game, except for one really crucial tip in that he has there at the end.
Yeah.
But outside of that, he's just kind of in the corner. I was listening to Russillo and Simmons, and they were talking about this, and so I was kind of really paying attention to it, and it's super duper true. He just disappears, and when a playoff like this, when you've seen that size is kind of king right now, like you need some people down low, like I don't care if you can shoot 3-pointers, man. You're 7 feet tall and a bulky dude. And you do have a nice touch because you can shoot 3-pointers. Get inside and kind of take advantage of that. It shouldn't just be OG and Anunoby flying in trying to get a rebound, man. You should be in there busting for rebounds. I feel like this is the postseason of tallness, but also like there being key rebounds. Every time I watch any broadcast, they're always like, that was such a key rebound. And it is usually true, but I feel like that is highlighted so much more in the broadcast this year.
There, rebounding is huge in general. But there have been huge.
Yeah, no, it is. But like they're talking about it like someone just like did a windmill dunk on on LeBron, like every time there's a rebound.
Yeah, and there have been critical rebounding advantages in games and in series, and there have been critical timely rebounds. And you mentioned the cat putback last night. There were plays down the stretch of that Denver OKC game where it just seemed like Denver was getting to every rebound and every loose ball, and just I don't want to say wanted it more, but I think was playing more aggressively, and maybe OKC got a little tighter, tentative compared to Denver going and taking the game. And then obviously we've had series where the Lakers and Warriors can't match up with the size and rebounding of Minnesota and Houston for most of the series. And then these stretches where all of a sudden here come the Warriors actually winning the rebounding edge for a 4-minute stretch, proving pivotal in some of those games. And so it has been, I mean, a key aspect of some of these series and of the playoffs so far. Agree with a lot of what you said about Cat. I think that's been kind of the book on Cat some as just kind of a guy that likes to hang around the 3-point line at times, maybe a little bit too much, a guy that can be a little bit of a goofball in critical moments at times. And then Tibbs obviously is going to do Tibbs, whether it makes as much sense or not. He's going to stick with things to an almost stubborn degree at times. And we've seen it for better and for worse.
It is so frustrating. Because I really, really like Tom Thibodeau. I was when I first moved to Chicago, he was still on the Bulls. I really like Tom Thibodeau. So it's very frustrating to watch him just not like get a rotation, man. Like get an 8-man rotation would be great. 9 would be perfect in a perfect world. But like rolling with 6 guys throughout the entire year and then do it again in the playoffs, there's no wonder that all these Tom Thibodeau teams break down and you never get to see what truly could happen with them because the stars by the end of it, Josh Hart is putting up 58 minutes a quarter. All right. Like it's ridiculous how much these guys are playing.
That's some of the beauty of some of the guys he has right now too, because Josh Hart is an example of a guy that is kind of, has a level of Iron Man-ness to his game.
All the Villanova guys. Villanova guys, basically.
Yeah. Mikhail's availability every game of every season and as many minutes as he plays at times for years now, going back to his last couple of years in Phoenix, has been insane. And he played, I think it was 51 minutes or whatever it was on Monday night and came up absolutely huge down the stretch on both ends of the court.
But even Mikal Bridges during the regular season had some stuff to say about playing that much. Now, the next game he went out and like played 40 minutes and hit a game winner. It was like middle of the season when that happened, but it still is something that comes up. And I think it's more than likely going to be the Achilles heel and the thing that, that I think, I know I said what I said about the Lakers and Timberwolves, and I was completely wrong. I think that's what's going to happen with Celtics and the Knicks. Reasonably, yeah, I honestly do. I think this was a game where, and same with OKC, they were both off for about 2 weeks. It's a long time. And you could kind of see that they were maybe just getting the feel back for it, of playing in a playoff intense atmosphere. I think both of those teams kind of handily take the rest of the series if I was looking at it like that. So,
I'm interested to see how the series play out overall, but I do expect both of those teams to come back and win. And I think everything you just talked about from the New York side of things is a reason to have confidence in Boston the rest of the way. They they shot really poorly in game one, and that is a team as much as any team in the league the last couple of years that is live and die by the three. And far more often than not, it's a live by the three. But occasionally they have these games where they get cold for stretches, and people get frustrated and wonder if Jason Tatum realizes he can in fact drive to the basket down the stretch last night. But more
It's that was super frustrating.
more often
Some
than not, it does work out. And so I think we're going to see the rest of this series them kind of shift back and win that battle more often than not as well. And then OKC has just been just head and shoulders might be a stretch, but they've been clearly the best team in the West all season. And so while Denver is getting itself together and Joker's playing really well and other guys are coming along, and so they have a chance to make this more of a series than it may have looked like it would be starting the playoffs. I do think Oklahoma City will
I
figure it out
mean,
and show their strength.
Oklahoma City was probably the best team for like 48 minutes of that game last night too. Like they were
Yeah,
harassing Denver for a long time. For some reason, they just let Denver keep chipping away, chipping away. Some foul things happen. Um, Denver gets some free points on the line, and then all of a sudden, yeah, it's a 3-point game, and then Denver very beautifully extended that last 12 seconds into about 20 minutes.
yeah.
But they did it. It was really great to watch how they manipulated that little amount of time to cover that much ground and win the game.
Yeah, and I mean, OKC fed right into it when they started the foul game as early in the process as they did, where they're like, we're not going to let Denver get a three, so we're going to foul you. And then they ended up having to do that, whatever it was, two or three times. And then on the
Yeah.
flip side, Chet steps up to the line eventually and misses both free throws and left that door wide open. And here comes Denver busting through it for a big road win.
I have nothing against Chet Holmgren, but our friend Chet, who we mercilessly make fun of, every time Chet does something wrong, I cackle. So there we go. Who do you got? Who do you got in in each series? Let's go through each one. Who do you got? How many games?
Yeah,
Denver,
the
Denver,
the
and OKC.
the game stuff's tough. I think this has a chance, particularly with Denver stealing game one, to be stretched a bit. Um, and I mean turn into potentially even a 7 game series, but I still do think Oklahoma City comes back and wins it in 6 or 7.
I'm going OKC. OKC in 6 on this one. Minnesota Warriors, other one in the West, which is tonight. We're recording this on Tuesday at around 1 p.m.
Yeah, so Minnesota I think comes out of this series, and all of these series, the numbers game becomes so tough because I don't want to say Minnesota wins this thing in 5. But then if you don't want to say it stretches to 7, then you're saying Minnesota is closing out in Golden State. And so all these series get weird from a numbers game because I think it's probably that's about the stretch to me of Minnesota's probably a couple games better than Golden State right now. But are they going to go to Golden State and close it out in 6 is the question, or does it get stretched to 7?
Ooh, I think that it's going to be. I think it's going to be Minnesota in 5. And I'm partially saying this because I want it to be wrong. So this is where I'm going to lay my hat because the stuff that I usually predict is wrong. So there we go. Now you know people. All right, moving over. Boston, New York. Boston's is down 0-1.
Yeah, I'm just going to keep saying in 6s for the exact reason of thinking these teams that I think ultimately lose the series are better than a gentleman's sweep.
Uh,
Um,
I'm
but
going gentleman sweep for this one. I honestly just think Boston is going to be the better team. I think New York got by with this one, and New York didn't play particularly great outside of, you know, um, Brunson, and then OG was really good. But like I just don't I think the full team effort is with Boston is going to outshine the Knicks. I think the Knicks were super lucky to get this game. So
yeah,
I'm going Boston in 5 there. And then last one, Cavs, Pacers. I had an itch on my nose, so not the scratchers. All right, Cavs, Pacers. Who you got?
As much as I said that the Pacers are the likeliest team to go ahead and complete the series win, and I won't be surprised either way. I'm going to stick still with the Cavs, and I'll say the Cavs do win in 7 games.
I'm going to go 7 on this one as well. I'm going to take Pacers, though. I'm going to take Pacers going back to the Eastern Conference Championship. Tyrese Halliburton is finally in his Carmelo Anthony bag of losing conference championship games. So there we go. Maybe I'll write that down, see where you're more right than me, like normal. That's all we got on the NBA playoffs, unless you got anything else leading up to it. We'll definitely keep you updated as we move through that. Obviously I will. So, I just noticed I leave the cupboards open on this. That's great. There we go. Let the people know my minimal plasticware.
I have nothing to add to your cupboards.
Cool. Thank you. Awesome. I was looking for a little save there. You really screwed me on that one, Jarrett. Thanks. That is all we got for you today. We're going to get out of here on that. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, comment. We'd love to hear from you. Go to Twitter, LA versus all y'all, and on Instagram. Follow Jarrett over there. He's going to update you on everything Louisiana sports, Louisiana recruiting, and then follow PODnas _LA on Instagram. We love to fool around on there, show you some cool stuff. That's all we got for you, PODnas.